Yeah, so pretty much been asleep all day. And first thing when I get up, I always look in the kitchen area or just look towards it, and then now I look at the fucking table. But I haven't seen anything else, so whatever. Now there was a guy that made a comment, and part of the videos I make today was going to be responding to him because I had mentioned, how it's like grimy or whatever. Not there are certain contexts of the word grimy to refer to like behavior or whatever, but I mean more in like a physical, like dirtiness sense. But dirty is not exactly the right word. But he was saying, oh yeah, grimy apartments are an issue, especially with roaches. Now, I don't know if I was specific when I made the other video, but I'm staying in a hotel right now. It is sort of laid out like Studio 6 extended stay, which is this, and some of the other ones. The way they're laid out is pretty much like sort of like old school, like efficiency apartments or something like that, but maybe he's referring to the fact that I might have mentioned that I lived with that one bitch in the end of 2019. But yeah, just in case for clarification, I'm in a hotel currently. But yeah, that's sort of the thing, right? Like, okay, I saw one, I saw one or two, and it's actually been longer now since I had seen the big one than it had been from the small one to see the big one, if that makes sense, right? So that factor is why I decided to just go ahead and get I got the rate for, a month plus, but I only have to pay once a week, and I can cancel and just, there's no penalty. I don't have to pay the part I didn't use. So, if worse came to worse, there's a way out. That's another reason I committed. But I don't know what happened to that guy's comment, because it was there and then it was just gone. I don't know if he deleted it. I don't know if I somehow deleted it by accident, because the phone I normally use, the screen's all fucked up. This is the better one because I found out I could use it. Who knows? It might be one of those people that saw some other video I put up and was like, oh, never mind, and unsubscribed or whatever. I don't want to speculate too much. Might have just been auto filtered. One of the things with this video, or this account, I mean, is that my other account that I was using, it never got censored. Every comment I post would go up, no matter where. But I think that's part of the reason they locked me out of it arbitrarily, is because on this one now it's like all my comments get filtered. So I don't know if maybe what's going on with that, but so now I'm going to cover anyway the Eugene comments. And it's one of those things, I've seen them on one of my other channels, and I'm not sure if it's they're trying to troll me or something, or if they're really just stating it because they think it's just humorous or whatever. But I actually thought those comments were funny, and I played it up on the last time that I got them on a channel. I'd actually changed that trap flexing picture I have. I had edited it to put Eugene's face over mine, and so I put that there for a while. But so I'm not offended by it. I don't know if that's the intention or not, but I think it's funny. But they're saying I sound like Eugene, and I really don't. I mean, I don't hear the resemblance at all. But one of the guys said, you probably heard this before. I don't know if he was trying to reference the fact that it was them that said that stuff before or not. But I actually have heard that before, and I made that as a comment or I mentioned that in a video I made on it when I got those comments last time, back in 2016 or 2017 or whenever it was that I worked at Amazon. One day I'd stopped at gas before I got to work, and I remember because it was the daytime, and I worked nights, so my shift started like, I don't know, 5 something or whatever, and went till like 3 in the morning. So I went ahead and stopped to get gas first. And when I was in there, the guy that was, the cashier, he said, has anybody told you, you sound like Eugene from Walking Dead? I'm like, what is that? And he's like, oh, it's a TV show. It's like, oh, I don't watch TV. He's like, yeah, he's he's like this smart guy, but he's like, blah, blah, blah. And I just thought you sounded like him. And I was like, oh, okay, well, you said he was smart or whatever. So I'll take that as a compliment. So I had heard it before, but it had been a long time. But I'm going to go ahead and wager that the people saying this aren't Southern or even like from the Midwest, because if you have an ear for those kinds of accents, I don't sound like them at all. And when I made this video the other day, the quickest example I could think of someone I actually do sound like is Killer Rolex. I sound more like him than I sound like Eugene. And I don't mean like, in the United States, and in this context is called a sociolect, where it's basically a dialect is spoken by people in a certain geographical region, right? So you might talk about New York accents or, whatever Southern accents, sort of referring to a specific area. But in the context of like black people in the United States, there's something called a sociolect. And I mean, it's more than just them, but this is a pretty prominent example where black people in the United States tend to sound more like each other than they do they sound distinct from the dialect of the region that they live in. So whether it's Atlanta or St. Louis or LA or whatever else, black people in those different areas sound different from each other, but they still have qualities that sort of relate to them as a social group, right? That's why it's called a sociolect. But to make my point, if you take that part out of it and look at the underlying accent, to me, he sounds like he has an Appalachian accent. Like he sounds like he's probably from Virginia or something like that. Because a lot of people, when they think of Southern accents, they're really thinking of like what they call like hillbilly accents, and that's Appalachia. It's a mountainous region that runs through like sort of the Midwest up into the Northeast a little bit. Goes through multiple different states. One of those being Virginia, but I mean, abstracting away, any type of like social, cultural layering on top of it, that's the first person I could think of that people who watch me might be aware of, that, in my opinion, if I sound like anybody, it would be like him. Right? Now, back when, I worked at Amazon and that guy had said that stuff at that gas station about me sounding like him, I didn't really look into it. But last year, whenever it was, when these people made those comments again, I decided to look it up. And whenever I looked up and I listened to Eugene talk, my first thought was, this guy sounds like he's from Texas. And when I went to the page for it, sure enough, the actor is from Texas, and if I remember correctly, his character is supposed to be from Texas as well. See, I got an ear for that. But the thing is, and this is what I mean, whenever I've been, especially like on the internet playing video games and shit, people will always ask me, are you from Texas? And I'm like, no. And it's like they don't believe me. But every time people try to guess where I'm from, they always get it wrong. Except for one guy at a gas station one time He said, "Oh, I know people there, where I'm from." But really, what I think it was is because it was a gas station. He might have saw my tags, and it's just bullshitting me. Never know. But yeah, my accent specifically is a combination of multiple different accents. Southern, Midwest, Appalachian, and then there's some aspects of Black English, but not a lot. They come out more depending on my mood, but that's primarily due to the fact when I was growing up, the school I went to at a point was like at least half black, and all the kids I hung out with were black. They were the only ones that didn't treat me like shit, right? This is sort of what I understood when Trueform and some other people, have made videos about how they prefer to hang out with white people or whatever, because it's like the same thing but the opposite way when they were in school. It's like kids, of different races treated them better or whatever. Some shit like that's probably just like a constant in human behavior. It's like people who are supposedly like your worst enemy or whatever. It's like, I'd kick Charleston White's fucking teeth out. Oh, we gay bashing. Well, you come see me then. But at the same time, dude, I could fucking almost guarantee you I hate gay people more than he does. Because he doesn't have to deal with it. I do. Right? Not to get too off on a tangent, but like, I was talking to this trans woman on Grindr, and she's acting like, first she's acting like she wants to fuck, and then I'm like, well, I want long term. And then she's like, oh, we could try that. Tell me about you, blah, blah, blah. And then she's asking where I'm at, and, then she's like, oh, I'm moving next week, but where she's moving is like the same area, basically. And obviously, I'd like for that to go somewhere if I could. Because even if I don't get to be the Chad and live with the bitch for free, splitting rent on an apartment is way cheaper than trying to do shit in a hotel. But I know that's the pipe dream, and sure enough, it's been fucking, 12 plus hours since she last said anything. So fuck her. I knew that wasn't going to happen, but that was sort of my experience in, this whole time anyway. So it stayed realistic, I guess. Yeah, so I ran out of space. So I had more nostalgia. I'm having a BSM moment. That's another one I found in 2019. I say another one. Whoever I mentioned in this video so far, as I'm aware, they were, but it wasn't like black pill stuff. I don't think Trueform did stuff on that back then. But when I said, what I meant was like, that's like another nostalgia thing or whatever, because I found him back then. I don't know if that makes sense. Whatever. But I ran out of space. Normally I wouldn't, but normally my computer's working to copy the data over. And I have another 256 gig SD card somewhere, but it's, I think it's outside, and I don't feel like going out there right now. I'll be going out there later tonight, but I was almost done with this video anyway. I pretty much, went off track, but yeah, fuck that tranny bitch. Yeah, the Eugene comments are interesting to me. I didn't go fully into it specifically because right now I'm having an issue with just storage space. So I'm trying to keep stuff short. But I also don't want to delete the original files. But it's interesting to me from a linguistic context. I don't get offended by them. I don't hear it, but it's one of those things where, I hear stereotypical Southern accents, especially in video games. They don't sound anything like a person from the South. They sound like every Southern accent, Appalachian accent, Midwest accent, like just all crammed together. And it's like what a Northerner would hear a Southern accent to be as. Sort of like how, I'd mentioned this on a Dean video. And Matt had said, oh yeah, kind of like how when Southerners try to do a New York accent, they end up sounding like they're from Boston. I'm like, exactly. Because you just don't have the ear for it. One of the things I have noticed is that there's not as much of an emphasis on the non-erotic R with New York accents as with, like Boston accents or whatever. But I hadn't included that in the comment he had responded to because it was already super wordy. But yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Or like that, Seen in Inglourious Bastards, right? Like the SS guy can tell. I mean, pretty much everybody can. They might not know why in a linguistic, context. But if you have the ear for a certain type of accent, it's like that in Scene. They could tell they weren't really German, but they couldn't quite put their finger on it, right? That is basically the same kind of thing, right? So I just, I think they're interesting comments. They're a nice springboard for these types of videos. I didn't go too deep into the linguistic stuff because, I'm pressed for storage space right this moment. But, just want to wrap this up. And I should have enough internal memory left to put these two pieces together and get it up on get it up on my account or whatever.